Hello again, welcome to another edition of CropLife Retail Week. Paul Schrimpf, joined by special guest Dave Frabotta. He's with our AgriBusiness Global group, and basically you're traveling the world, finding out all sorts of interesting things. So I'm glad you could join us in the absence of Eric, who is traveling. He is at the National Farm Machinery Show, and we'll hear a little more about that next week. But of course, on the international front, nothing's a bigger news item than coronavirus, and of course, want to hear a little bit more about the social aspects of that. And you are in contact with China regularly and have some contacts who are also working there in terms of journalists. So maybe you can give us a little update on what you're finding out about, I guess, the societal things and, of course, the business things and how it's affecting agriculture and especially crop protection.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. It's nice to be here. First and foremost, this is an important story for folks in China and around the world as we're monitoring the scope and scale and length of this outbreak. First of all, it's a humanitarian crisis in China, so our thoughts go to them. But we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't talk about the business implications as well. Right now, it's a little dire and unpredictable in China. About 1,100 deaths as of today. Yesterday, we're filming this on Wednesday, so on February 11th, we had the largest single-day reports of fatalities due to corona. That was 100. We don't think we're on the backside of this just yet. So there's going to be some more continued spread in China, possible continued spread outside of China, although as we see now, the spread is not as significant because of quarantine measures. The CDC did sound the alarm yesterday that said we are in containment mode here in the US, which is still positive. Of course, in China, they've reverted to mitigation mode. So we're not there yet. That's a positive thing for us and for people ex-China. Now, China is the supermarket to the world, right? So we are going to see some disruptions of manufacturing from there. They've staggered when companies want to go back to work. They thought perhaps it would happen this week. We see some larger corporations kind of scaling up to go back next week. It doesn't look like either of those are going to happen to any significant degree. There's a couple reasons for that, but to cut to the chase, it looks like they're targeting normalization for factory to re-engage factories February 28th. They're looking to possibly postpone the children going back to school until perhaps into April. So they're still expecting a little bit more spread and a little longer quarantines. The good news in China is that medical products and food are free to move around the country. So those are above the quarantine, and they're letting some of those logistics are allowing food and medicine to get through. Bad news is for crop protection, for fertilizer products, and for other products coming out of China, the ports are absolutely at a standstill. So no products are coming in. If you had a shipment that reached China before the lunar holiday, it's probably still sitting in port. There's a backlog there. There's no product moving around the country and no foreseeable product moving around the country in the next couple weeks. So it's something for retailers to keep in mind.
Yeah, domestically, supply was pretty good just because of last year being such a tough year and so much not getting applied. The number of retailers did have a pretty significant stockpile of products, but certainly something to watch out for as we get, if this crisis continues to unfold and continues to extend in terms of the time frame, it's where we feel like we have it under control.
Yeah, retailers probably weren't counting that inventory as a blessing last year. You might be counting it as a blessing this year. And important for everyone to understand how their value chain works, how their supply chains work, whether it's vertically integrated, backwards integrated, whether we have other alternatives for key actives. And China certainly is a huge provider of non-selective herbicides, almost all of them are made there. And if they're not made there, the raw materials come from there. So Q1, Q2, some sorts of disruptions, but mild compared to the length and severity of this outbreak and whether or not it rolls into Q3.
Terrific. Well, thanks for the update, Dave. We appreciate that. AgriBusinessGlobal.com. Dave is regularly updating the site with information and stories as they unfold. So please feel free to sign on to that and keep abreast of what's going on. So thanks again, Dave.
Pleasure being here.
That's it for this edition of CropLife Retail Week, and we'll see you next week. If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comment section below.
Your feedback is important to us. We'll try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode.
And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.